Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Stunning Steve Barber. And joining me, I have not one, but two guests this week. And we are going to be kind of a roundtable. In fact, this was actually Justin's idea to have kind of a roundtable discussion about WrestleMania 40 and everything that kind of goes along with that. And so you see, if you're on YouTube, you already see I have Justin Treno from the TNC SportsTalk to throw in with Justin. And I have a longtime guest, longtime fan of the show. He's been on the show, I don't know, God, and Randy, how many times has it been now?
This is like five or six.
At least, yeah. So we have Rescue Randy. He's back joining the show again. In fact, Rescue Randy, he's actually become such a fixture on the show. I actually have people that refer to him as Rescue Randy. So, dude, you're famous.
Well, mild famous.
Mildly famous.
Can I ask you a question, Randy? Are you going to
Sure.
eventually create a podcast for yourself, like in your spew?
You know, I wonder if I would have enough ideas for something like that. I do have an idea for something that I'm kicking around, but
I mean, it could be
I have concerns.
versatile, but I mean, listen, the other day I thought you had your own podcast. I'm like, because I was actually talking to Steve when we talked about this. I was trying to actually be able to stream this live on both his armchair booking channel and then my TNC Sports Talk channel, because that way there's more people who could listen. But man, it just didn't work out. We're still working on that, but yeah, it would be nice to see if you ever get a podcast. Hey, you got a valid listener in me already signed up, so
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have two listeners right here. So
It's a good start.
yeah, like I said, I mean, if you ever want to start it, just let me know. I can walk you through the beginnings of it, or Justin can walk you through.
yeah,
His
not
beginning.
difficult at all.
We
Do it
will
from your phone.
we'll definitely help you out. Because a lot of trial and error, a lot of the pitfalls we've hit, we can actually warn you about. It's like, hey, don't do this because you want to do it. And there's like a certain order that you want to do things. I have found that out the hard way. There's certain orders you want to do things. So everybody just kind of keep your, stay tuned.
Here's that
Randy
101 tip, just briefly, is that, hey, anyone, not just, Randy, if you're looking for podcasts, is know what you want and make sure you get what you want out of it, because it's not worth it unless you get what you want out of it.
Yep. So, but today is going to be all about WrestleMania 40. And that makes me feel old.
Think about this. I do not make you. I don't mean to make you feel old. Randy, may I ask in a range of how old? Above
I'm
40
not
or
afraid
below 40?
to say I am 39 for a handful of weeks.
Okay. So you miss I mean, Steve, you've been around for WrestleManias, all 40
I
of them.
remember when the first WrestleMania happened, because that was in 1985. Now, granted, at that time, I was not watching. It was WWF at the time, but it happened, of course, in late March, early April of 1985. I was watching Mid-Atlantic. Of course, a lot of people know, also known as the Crockett era, but Mid-Atlantic, I mean, that's where Starrcade was.
So WrestleMania 1, though, was that recorded? Was that was that a pay-per-view at the time, or was it live TV?
It was pay-per-view.
That was closed circuit, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was closed circuit.
Like
it was
the precursor to pay-per-view.
Right. I mean, closed circuit, you would go to an arena and they would pull it up on a screen, or you might go to a movie theater. Sometimes they actually had them in movie theaters, and you would watch it live there. So if you couldn't get to an arena, you couldn't necessarily watch it live. Or if you knew somebody with a satellite dish, or if you had a satellite dish, and we're not talking like the little bitty direct TV, we're talking like the huge, honking, like you flip it upside down and it's a bird bath for a pterodactyl type satellite dish. I mean, the big ones.
Like the one where you're selecting the satellite, like I'm picking satellite G7,
yes,
and then like the channel on the transponder.
Yes, and you would actually see that sometimes. You'd be driving by somebody's house and like, oh, they must be changing channels, because you'd see their satellite dish literally moving like And I had some friends who actually had had a satellite dish. And sometimes, we'd be outside, playing, hanging out, whatever. And all of a sudden their parents or whoever would be inside. And also we look over and we see the tree and it'd be moving. It's like, oh, they're switching satellites. And,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how all the satellites worked back then. And then I spent a lot of time in the Air Force dealing with satellites. I'm actually considered a space professional. This is before Space Force was even a thing. So I actually know quite a bit about satellites now. And that's why I know we've come a long way from the days of the great big dishes to the little bitty DirecTV dish, network where they're all trained on one satellite and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is with like WrestleMania, growing up for me, and I'll be 29 this year, but if everything was pay-per-view, everything was about 50-60 bucks. You get it for like 24, 48 hours. So a lot of times you put the DVR on or you put a VHS in and hit record, and that was the only channel it was stuck on. You let it run like twice. And my father, my family would only pay for like the Rumble, Mania, maybe SummerSlam or Survivor Series, but we missed out on a lot of pay-per-views. And now you get Peacock for what, $7, and you get, at least this year, you get WrestleMania 40, easy access as long as your internet connection isn't, lagging.
Right. And I mean, that's why it's definitely a different world. So here we are, 39 years later, not 40 years later, even though some people call it the 40th anniversary. I'm like, no, it's the 39th anniversary. Do your math. But you didn't start with 0, you started with 1. So this is the 39th anniversary of it. But either way, we've come a long way since then where you still, even though it wasn't happening in your arena, you still had to go to an arena if you wanted to watch it live. Or like I said, you couldn't watch it necessarily at home, unless you had one of those big satellite dishes or whatever. But even that was very few and far between. Not everybody had a satellite dish. And the next year with WrestleMania 2, of course, that's when they did the 3 locations. That was also copying Mid-Atlantic, the NWA Jim Crockett, because they had started doing Starcade in 2 different locations, Greensboro
and I don't know
Atlanta.
about that. I mean, realistically,
it was a bad experiment.
Was it bad?
WrestleMania.
If you're watching on TV, maybe it was okay, but it reminded me of when they celebrated Raw 25 when they had it at the Barclays Center and Madison Square Garden. Was that Raw 25?
I believe so, but see, that's when Raw.
I think they only had like one or 2 matches that weren't at like the main arena.
Right. Exactly.
Right. They went back to the place where Raw used to have like a set location.
Hammerstein Ballroom, I believe that was.
Yes, and it was not even in Madison Square Garden. It was close to Madison Square Garden, but it was not in Madison Square Garden. They couldn't do that every week in Madison Square Garden. There's no way. But they had this ballroom. They could do it, and they would actually tape like 2 or 3 Raw episodes right there. Now you can't really do that as much because of the internet and because people will get. And plus, none of that. But then you had Eric Bischoff going, "Hey, if you go to this chat, don't even bother watching Raw. They're going to have this." And next thing you know, butts and seats and.
But I thought that was an utter disaster when they had that 2 locations for celebrating the 25th anniversary.
They did that. That was more symbolic.
Yeah, it was really poorly executed.
Right.
Like, I don't know if it could have been executed well, but boy, I don't think that was even a close representation of something executed well.
But
we just learned what not to do.
But Justin, we're going through all the notes. I mean that you were.
Before we do anything,
point us out. Go ahead.
You giving us an update with Dwaylen. I have to mention him on the show.
Okay. For anybody listening to Armchair Booking, Dwaylen's wife had their baby last Tuesday. A healthy baby boy named Nico, and he's actually posted about it on Facebook. So that's why I didn't really mention it on the show when I did it last week. But I mean, just kind of.
Did we not? I thought we did.
I thought we may have mentioned a little bit, but I actually waited until they started posting stuff on Facebook to really give any more details. But yeah, because baby Nico right now, I actually asked Dwaylen if he'd be able to come on the show right now, but they are actually at an appointment for Nico. right now. Normal appointment. Baby's a week
Everything
old.
changes, man.
Yep. And Justin, because you have
Dare
a
he choose dad duties?
yeah. So how old's your son, Justin? 5 months, 6 months?
6 months.
6 months. So you're just now catching up on sleep finally.
And I tell
Starting
you,
to.
he's wonderful. I mean, I don't know what anyone's talking about. He sleeps through the night.
Yeah. And but I did ask Dwayne if he'd be able to give his predictions, and he hasn't responded. So I'm guessing they had probably already left to go to
I'm just gonna say it's
baby
not
check appointment.
WrestleMania season without him, especially giving these predictions and being a part of the program. So although we're gonna do our best for this roundtable, it is not the same.
It's really
I
not.
definitely miss his unique perspective. He's always
Yes.
going to be like he always pulls up some of the deeper historical things of a feud. Like some of these little nuances that may have happened 6 months ago that's planting the seeds for this. And like, this is why the result will be that way. And I'm
He likes
like,
to point
how
out
do you
the
remember
things
that?
that kind of slap, but like it's right in front of us. It's like, how come we're
Right.
not seeing that?
And I try. I mean, I really do try, but I mean, I cannot match that
No.
that level
That
of
human
knowledge.
encyclopedia, huh?
Yeah, the wrestling encyclopedia that is Dwaylen, delicious Dwaylen Davis. So, but obviously, he's got other priorities he's taking care of right now because baby, well, that's got to kind of take priority, So, but he's doing well. Baby's doing well. Everybody's doing well.
And then I got to ask, everyone's safe out there? I mean, it wasn't as
And Mount Orb did
but
not really. Our town really didn't get hit. I mean, we got a bunch of rain. A lot of rain, but
it kind of divided north and south of us. Like, Fayetteville to the north of us caught a lot of it. Like
by the time
Ripley
it got
to the
out there,
south of us got it, but not us.
Yeah.
And there was a covered bridge in West Union. Apparently, was a very old. Well, obviously they're all old, but it was a covered bridge that was actually apparently taken out in West Union.
I think it was called the Kirker covered bridge. I believe is the name. I think that was the name of it. I'm not certain, but I think so.
And I've seen other people talk about. There were some areas. I mean, I guess like Aberdeen, Ohio, was actually hit because I know people they sheltered in a church there. The church opened the door, said, "Get in, get in, get in," and so they allowed people to shelter in their church. Unlike Joel Osteen. But anyway, that's another story. But so I mean, it did hit. It didn't hit really Mount Orb except for all the rain. And but the other areas around us did kind of use some Mount Orb, like Randy said, it kind of split to north and south of us. And up in Dayton, my daughter, she actually sheltered like at one of the dorms there, but then they ended up not even getting anything. Even though, and the base itself, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, actually shut down. They actually sent people home because they got hit by a tornado like a month ago, and it actually tore some buildings up.
The way that WLW or Fox 19, excuse me, was actually describing this, which was like the first time since 2018 that all the chemicals kind of just matched up a line to give us the possible, disaster, biggest disaster ever. But, I guess what? You can never be too safe when it comes down to these situations. And, although like we got like just probably like 10 minutes of solid downpour, like wind gushing, so much downpour, such a magnitude of grid downpour that nothing was visible. So, you get that mixed along with, the nice brightness afterwards that, maybe a possible tornado, but you always just got to be careful and, be cautious about, how you plan for these things.
Well, right now I'm just planning here in, let's see, today's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. In 3 days, we're going to have night one of WrestleMania because that is actually something that I do like now how they do the 2 nights instead of the 5-hour long show because there have been times, before COVID, when they were running these extremely long shows, I actually fell asleep for the last couple of matches and I would actually have to watch the last few matches like the next day.
Remember I don't forget what WrestleMania was. It was like 5-6 years ago where the main event was a triple threat match: Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, and Becky Lynch, right? Where that was the main event of WrestleMania, but it was like a 7-hour show. I was living out in the West Coast. It started at 4. that match did not go on until midnight.
And think about, because now you're in the
And that
Eastern.
was in what, New York, I think, right? From my understanding,
That one
or Miami.
I don't think it was my. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think it was in Miami, but but either way, actually, it might have been Dallas. I don't know. But either way, think about it. If it was 11 o'clock on the West Coast, think about what time it was on the East Coast. Why do you think everybody was falling asleep? And why do you think there were so many complaints going, why are y'all running these extremely long shows, especially when you have so many video packages that you could just cut out? And by the way, nobody cares about the musical acts either. Knock them off too. We
WrestleMania 35 was that night, and it was held in it was held at MetLife Stadium.
MetLife, so that's New Jersey, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
So, but now, with it being 2 nights, it does kind of break it up. Now, I really wish they would deconflict this, because this is also at least the 3rd year in a row that WrestleMania has happened in the same weekend as the Final Four for the NCAA men's basketball.
Do you think you guys they can move away from that? WWE tries their best to not conflict with anything big, but
it didn't used to be an issue because they weren't running 2 nights. They were only running on Sunday night. And so there was a fact. I know the one year you had the Final Four games happening Saturday night, WrestleMania happening Sunday night, and then the championship game happened on Monday night, because it was like the Final Four was happening in Houston, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then WrestleMania was in Dallas. And then, so if you were in those areas, you could go WrestleMania next morning, drive up to Dallas.
And that was like 2 years ago.
No, this was pre-COVID. So,
pre-COVID, okay.
So I want to say it was 2017.
Weren't they in Dallas 2 years ago also, though? Because Stone Cold had his final match with Kevin Owens.
Yep. Or was that last year?
No, because
it
was 2 years ago. Both nights. That's the thing.
That's right. Yeah. And but you could do that. You could go, okay, I'm going to watch the Final Four. Next night, I'm going to go watch WrestleMania, and then I'm going to go back and watch the championship game. And that was all. And I know Dallas and Houston, it's not like they're right next to each other, but either way, it's still a drivable thing you could do. And so it was great. But now WWE has moved all the pay-per-views to Saturday night, which is fine. To be honest with you, I'd rather be Saturday night than Sunday night.
Certainly.
Yeah.
But now, aren't you also competing with like UFC and boxing? Don't they have their pay-per-views mixed between Saturday and Sundays?
They won't be. WWE won't be competing with UFC anymore because they're all under the same umbrella, and so they'll make sure they got the self-deconfliction there.
You still got boxing, which I don't know how.
How often do boxing pay-per-views actually happen? I
don't know, like once every quarter.
Right. So as I say, I don't really see that being that's easy to deconflict. You would think that the Final Four NCAA men's basketball tournament, which is usually one of those events that garners like some of the highest TV ratings every year, depending on who's playing. And I could see that happening this year just because of the whole story with North Carolina State, with them being like the Cinderella team, right. But I don't know. But it's WrestleMania.
What about the angle of increased sports betting having an effect on increasing folks' interest in watching those games? So because they're going to have a more vested interest in that financially, they're going to be more inclined to watch that, and maybe that may drive a somewhat of an increase of competition for those eyes, because now people are like betting on those games in a very large way.
Or you could be like me, where literally this laptop that we're recording on, this one right here, right behind it is another TV. And I did that last year where I think I had the Final Four game on my laptop, and I had WrestleMania on big TV, because I can watch the cable. I can watch live TV on the laptop. I can't, because I don't have the app on the TV, so I can't do it there, because this TV actually is not hooked up to a cable box. It's just, it's got the internet, but it doesn't have, I don't have the apps. I'll watch it through the PlayStation. I can actually watch the Peacock network through the PS4 that I have hooked up. So that's why I have it on both. So I've been able to do that. Multitasking. That's what I do. And Yeah, so that, I mean, I could do that, and I know other people have had setups where they have like 2 or 3 TVs.
Not just for basketball or WrestleMania. You do it
Right.
for
So,
football. I mean, uh,
hmm
you know, for how large and how much talent WWE has, especially now, compared to the pandemic where you kind of felt like WWE was on a decline, right? With letting go a lot of staff. I think it is fine separating it, I mean, you still have what you have 7 matches night one, 6 matches night two. It's still a pretty heavy card.
hmm
Plus, you have the long entrances from, the stage down to the ring. You do have the video packages, but it is WrestleMania, so you do make those exceptions, but you have such a large talent that I think everyone deserves a spotlight. One of the things that I was questioning leading up to WrestleMania was how are you showcasing everybody? Because, yeah, you have Andre the Giant Battle Royal, the SmackDown before, but you have Sami Zayn, that was a main eventer last year. Kevin Owens was a main eventer last year. And for a while they were kind of just tossed around and not even be considered as or having a WrestleMania match on the spot on the card. So the magnitude of 2 nights I've gotten used to. I'm fine. It's kind of like for me, it's always bigger than the Super Bowl, in my opinion. The only thing I wish WWE would continue doing, which I don't see a whole lot of, is how they used to make the week prior WrestleMania access, where they go into town Monday and they don't leave into town the next Monday, and then they have all this access at the convention center and this and that. That's what I think I love the most about WrestleMania, and I haven't seen a whole lot of placement for that in the last couple of years. Obviously, I'm assuming because of the pandemic and all, but
yeah, I mean, we're still experiencing some fallout from, the time when COVID was just running rampant, to enough where they were shutting everything down.
yeah,
And I mean, they might in the future bring that back. I don't, I have no idea. But also, well, VKM's not there anymore, so he may have been part of the one driving that. We don't know how Paul Levesque, Triple H, we don't know what he's going to do. But then I'm also seeing rumors that Paul Levesque might also be on his way out because now Dwayne Johnson is, not The Rock, but I'm talking Dwayne Johnson himself is actually on the board. I mean, that's a real position. That's not just something created for an angle. He actually
right.
is on the board.
Not a
And so,
figurehead deal.
yeah, it's not a figurehead. I mean, he's actually there helping make decisions. Now, The Rock, though, I mean, he is also,
He
Dwayne
comes
Johnson.
from a family that
Exactly.
has rich history of producing wrestling companies
Right.
or wrestling
And,
shows.
and, Triple H, has a very, very good wrestling mind. And he came from the viewpoint of a wrestler. So he understands, a lot of the stories and a lot of what is driving people because Triple H knows listen to the fans, whereas as Vince in his like the last few years was basically thumbing his nose at the fans, going, "No, I'll tell you what you like." And
Just
He was
tone
doing that for
deaf.
the past decade.
exactly,
Let's
but
be honest.
Randy actually just hit it perfect. I mean, like you said, he's Vince was tone deaf. And not only
Yeah.
that, but I mean, and now we all obviously know some of the other distractions that were happening, because Vince ended up being kind of, well, creepy, you know, um, because we had,
A
but
sort
He's a
of
dweeb.
power, right? I mean,
well, I mean, between that and what's been happening to Nickelodeon, I mean, it kind of makes you, wonder who in these entertainment industries can people actually trust. I mean,
someone told me I'm just waiting for Disney next.
don't worry, I'm pretty sure Disney will be coming.
But no,
Wouldn't be the first time for them either, but because they actually
it's
hired one of the guys from that was fired from Nickelodeon, where Disney ended up hiring him. And it's like, really? Because the dude, anyway, we're starting to go way off topic. So I'm going to reel it back in. We're actually talking about WrestleMania. So, and I'll actually hit Randy first. When you hear WrestleMania, what does it mean to you?
Is simple and is almost like the Sunday school answers. I look at it like the easy answer is to me, it always means that I'm going to see something fantastic. It's always going to be a spectacle. There's always going to be this moment, at least one moment, but usually several that like you feel it deep in your chest. You feel this emotional connection to something, or like something that leaves you in awe, something that you're going to remember years down the road. Like when I think back to something, even though this is just a big spot, when Edge speared Jeff Hardy, when he was dangling and Edge jumps from the ladder and spears him, and like there was like three people in the room with me, and all of us are like, holy bleep, at the same time. And like we weren't even looking at each other, we're just lost in the moment. And like you get those moments with WrestleMania almost without fail. There might be like a couple matches that are a dud here and there, but it's just like this celebration of this thing that I love, expressed in this grand, over the top, beautiful way. And it's just this attraction that I know is going to deliver for me every time I watch it.
Oh, there you go. Justin?
You know, WrestleMania. For me, I call it the Holy Grail. Um, for one weekend out of the entire year, you get people from the around the world, China, Korea, England. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what's going on in this world. People will travel and spend thousands of dollars to watch wrestlers, professional athletes be in the spotlight. This is, people say that the Super Bowl is the biggest sport, or, the biggest venue. I mean, this is as big. I mean, I feel like sometimes WrestleMania could even be bigger than the Olympics, because, as growing up as a kid, any wrestling fan would say, I want this, I want a main event WrestleMania. That would be a dream, right? I mean, you grew up in you know did you guys ever think of, hey, yeah, that I would love to be a part of WrestleMania, being a wrestling fan?
Certainly. I
Yeah,
think
I
any
mean,
wrestling fan, any child has like imagined themselves as their favorite star standing in the middle of the ring, and everybody like chanting
And the
your
thing,
name and you holding a belt high in the air.
and that's the thing, like, you talk about the World Series, you talk about the NBA Finals, you talk about the Super Bowl. You're not the only person in the spotlight at that time. When it comes down to wrestling, there's a you and your partners and your opponents, right? And you got to make it happen. This is that, you could call it stunt doubling, whatever you want to call it, but they have to execute. And you have millions of people watching you, and you don't get a second take at it. It's a one and done deal.
it's a
And
one wrestling, and this is actually Dwayne's wife Hope has actually said this is wrestlers are the greatest one take actors in the world.
you have to, and here's my thing is that, while executing these moves, you got to tell the story. Think about Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns this year. They main event not one, but two nights, right? They got to tell the story not once, but twice. They have to feel the crowd. They got to take the moment to engage. That's a lot. And I don't know if I can multitask like that. So there's a lot to it that is beyond just a weekend venue. You go into Friday night, you got Monday, the night after, WrestleMania, and there's just so much to grasp that I think it's bigger than almost anything in in the world.
And for me, because I mean, I got to ask the question myself as well. And you kind of hit on this as well, Justin. This is the time of year, this weekend where it's not just the entire world, like international of wrestling fans. This is the weekend where non-wrestling fans, oh, they know all about this because if you ask any non-wrestling fan, even some people who hate wrestling, hate it, despise it, look down on it, but they know what WrestleMania is. They may not know what the Royal Rumble is, but they know what WrestleMania is because it has become such a part of the culture now. And the reason they have it in football stadiums is because they attract that kind of audience. And I can't think of the last WrestleMania they had that was not in an open air stadium. but it's been a while. And, or I say open air, just a football stadium in general, because, this like the Superdome's not open air, but I mean, they have,
World's best entertainers can't fill those kind of
right,
stadiums with regularity.
right. And just like, kind of ironically enough, talking about the Final Four, NCAA, they eventually moved the Final Four in the championship game into a football stadium because they had that much demand for it. And WrestleMania actually fills the stands up. Now they've also tried the football stadiums with the Rumble, with SummerSlam. They don't always fill it. In fact, Dwaylen, who was at the SummerSlam that was in Nashville, almost 2 years ago now, he'll tell you that, yeah, of course, what we see like on the replays, I mean, you see only where fans are, but you don't see like the empty seat. He said there was a ton of empty seats there. But Mania, they could spin that camera all the way around. You're not going to find hardly any empty seats.
So bad that you also are now seeing arenas where they don't really have like a stage or a Titantron like they normally do, like where they cut off a quarter. They have it all the above. Here's something to mention here. April 2nd, 2006 was the last time WrestleMania was held indoors in an arena. It was WrestleMania 22 at the Allstate Arena.
Hasn't been quite that long.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Ever since then, it's been held inside inside a arena.
And where's Allstate Arena? Where was that?
Illinois.
Illinois. Okay, so one was okay.
You got Money in the Bank ladder match with Rob Van Dam, Bobby Lashley, Finley, Matt Hardy, Ric Flair, Shelton Benjamin. Main event was John Cena versus Triple H. The Undertaker took on Mark Henry in the casket match that year, and Shawn Michaels defeated Vince McMahon that year in a no-holds-barred match.
Is that the match where Vince McMahon had God on his side that made an entrance
Shane
with
McMahon,
him?
Shane McMahon entered in the match to help Vince, but failed.
For some reason, I was always thinking that was a SummerSlam, but no, I guess it was WrestleMania.
This was the year that Edge spears Mick Foley through
the fire,
a flaming table.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. I didn't realize it was that long ago. That the last time they had something, I guess, that was not in a stadium that could be used for football.
And here's interesting. They had an 18-man inter-promotional battle royale. Viscera eliminates Snitsky. Almost like reminds me of Andre the Giant.
Snitsky, that's a name I haven't thought of in a really long time.
Yeah.
But one thing's for certain, it's not his fault.
This was when the Boogeyman defeated Booker T.
Okay, who was booking that show?
This was JBL defeating Chris Benoit for the United States Championship. This was Big Show and Kane defeating Carlito and Chris Masters for the World Tag Team Championships. You have the intergender handicap match. So it was, I guess it was Boogeyman versus Booker T and Queen Sharmell.
Then it had to be King Booker.
Yeah.
All hail King Booker.
5 times.
Anyways, that's just, that's 18 years of wrestling outdoors. I mean, they have an indoors arena. How does it feel being back outdoors? I mean, you have the big canopy over you, but if it's raining, I mean, you saw a couple years ago they tried to have it at Tampa Bay.
Yeah, where they actually had to delay it because it's the only WrestleMania they've had where there was a rain delay, and it was for safety reasons. I mean, it wasn't just rain. I mean, it was an electrical storm.
Right.
And then somebody Sasha Banks, who actually slipped down the ramp when she was walking down because it was still wet. And so, I mean, there was like no traction and she was going down and she just lost it. I mean, it wasn't her fault. Or now she's in AEW anyway. Maybe that's the reason why she went to AEW, unsafe working conditions, because she's slipping down ramps. But yeah, that's the only one. And that was actually, they had just started allowing limited audiences back. And so the stands then were like half filled, but it wasn't because they couldn't get anybody. It's because they weren't allowed to have as many people.
Right.
But yeah, it got rain delayed. Now over the ring, they do have something because above this cover, they actually have the screens where people can actually watch. Because
Right.
unless you want to sit there with binoculars, looking down like you're looking at a bunch of
Yeah, but
ants.
still, those Titantrons out there are not big enough to really. If you're in the far back in the last seat up there in the nosebleed seats, and you could look over the entire city of Philadelphia, I bet you're still not getting a good enough view. I mean, I would love to go to WrestleMania, but even like going to regular shows here at the Heritage Bank Arena, unless you're sitting somewhere where you got a good view, I just wouldn't invest my money into that, to be honest.
I don't know. I mean, Heritage Bank Center, that one, well, Randy and I, we can tell you that because we just saw Avenged Sevenfold there a couple weeks ago.
There's almost no bad area. I
Yeah,
mean,
there's not. I
Yeah,
mean,
that place is small enough that pretty much anywhere you sit there, unless you're just kind of obscured by the Titantron, it's really a decent view in
but
Heritage Bank Center.
for me though, like if you, because I like to sit across back, but you could hardly see entrances or what happens outside the ring because everything's camera angle. You know what I'm saying?
right.
So I like to try to sit on the one of the sides, but if you sit on the camera side, your tickets are twice as expensive, but then they hardly have any seats on the other side. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I don't know. I guess I have a preference. Like if I want to be able to have, I don't want to be able to have an obstructed view, and especially knowing in a sport that's going to take things out of the ring onto the floor, where then now your view of the action may be disrupted by
Well,
maybe the ring or a post.
if you're willing to go sit in a stadium like that, like you said, I'll just call it the Eagles Stadium. I can't think of that what the actual
Lincoln Financial Field.
Lincoln Financial Field, where the Philadelphia Eagles play. And if you're sitting like at the very, very top, I mean, there's no more seats above you. The only next thing you know, like you said, you're looking out over,
Yeah.
the city of Philadelphia, watching Rocky run up the library steps. You're seeing that. So, but if you're willing to do that, you're wanting to go, you don't care where you're sitting. You're like, you know
Yeah.
what, I'm at WrestleMania. Because I mean, I've actually known people who went to WrestleMania. I know a friend of mine, in fact, he worked for me over in Afghanistan, and he actually went to WrestleMania in Dallas the first time that
Just to
because
go.
just to
Yeah.
go, and he was with because he sent me
It's
some
an
pictures.
experience. I get that. I
Yep.
want to go for experience too. And I mean, and my experience was also mainly was kind of disrupted when my chances kind of given up because there will never be someone like Bray Wyatt or The Undertaker. And those are
Right.
the only reason why I would go, because I'm sorry, when you sit on the couch and you hear those bells go for Taker, or you see the lights go out and you see the fireflies come out for Bray, you get chills a little bit,
Yeah.
even sitting on the couch, in a hot summer
Did
day.
you ever see Bray Wyatt at a live show come out?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
I've
never had
actually
that experience.
I've been there because in fact it was actually in Cincinnati, and it is like one of the coolest things, and all of a sudden you're there, and everything goes out, and then all of a sudden everybody immediately pulls out their cell phones and they have their flashlights on doing the Firefly thing, and we're never going to experience that again, of course, with Bray Wyatt, with his unfortunately, passing away. But it is one of those really cool WrestleMania moments. Well, it's a cool moment no matter where you're at, but at WrestleMania, it just makes it even more special. And
Right.
some of the other WrestleMania moments, because I know that's one of the questions. And I have to give credit here, ladies and gentlemen. Everything, like all the bullet points were written. Justin actually sent those to me this time. It wasn't me. Justin actually sent them to me. I'm like, you know what? This looks good. Let's roll with it. So some of my favorite WrestleMania moments, for me, the one that kind of pops out, and it's really entrances. Because yes, the matches, Hogan slamming Andre. I mean, that was one of the biggest things. And yes, Justin, I know you weren't alive when that happened. Randy was barely alive when that happened.
I've still
So
seen those.
Believe
yeah,
so.
yeah. But you've seen the footage. I mean, it
One and
was
two.
yeah. I mean, it was a huge deal when Hogan slammed Andre, pinned him because like the first time Andre, they said he
But
was
see,
undefeated, but he actually was not undefeated. But the first time
but
he
I've
had
been
lost
told
the
that he's been
match.
slammed before
He
Hogan.
had been slammed before Hogan had,
So
had
for
actually
me,
slammed him before.
because in WWE history, this was promoted as the first time Hogan. Sorry, I have just a baseball man, but this was the first time that they were advertising it as Hogan never slammed Andre before.
And this is a criticism of WWE, WWF, WWF. They're not the only wrestling company to do this, but they have made it almost an art form where they expect the fans to forget, things that happened, sometimes literally just 2 years ago.
And didn't Hogan beat Andre before?
No, Hogan had never
No,
beaten
okay.
Andre before. They were part of the undercard at Shea Stadium, and this is
Okay.
actually saying something. Um, of the night that it was Bruno Sammartino and Larry Zbyszko in a cage. Which, by the way, of course, we had Larry Zbyszko on the show about 6 months ago, and he actually talked about that particular card. But Hogan Andre was part of the undercard for that. If that tells you how
Yeah.
big, and yeah, it was a cage match. Generally, cage matches back then were the last match on the evening because you had to
You had to
set the
put it
cage
together.
up, and so you
Yeah.
didn't want to take the time. NWF still does that, and a lot of the indie companies they still do that because it takes a while to set that cage up. But back then, I mean, Bruno and Zbyszko was just huge anyway. It was going to, and that was in Shea Stadium, so that was a stadium show, which were rare back then. But Hogan, yeah, he did slam Andre. He did not beat Andre. Hogan was a heel at the time. Andre, of course, was a face, and and Andre, he wasn't just wrestling for Vince. It was Vince Senior during that time. Vince Senior would actually more or less loan him out. Because Andre was a huge attraction. Andre was bringing in some good money, so Andre was getting paid. But when they advertised, oh, the first time Hogan slammed Andre, it actually was not. And also, Harley Race had slammed Andre. A couple other people had slammed him. There weren't many. I mean, they were not many. And he had lost matches early in his career, but Andre's losses were still few and far between. That's why they were able to advertise him as, like undefeated, never been beaten. And it
And that's
just
the other thing.
added,
You go lose in, let's say, NWA, you're not losing in WCCW or something like that. I'm like you could have the undefeated streak revisited because you didn't lose in this promotion.
somewhat. I mean, and this is when Vince was also notorious about this, where no other company exists outside WWE.
Yeah.
And, he expected everybody just to go with that. Although you have people like longtime wrestling fans like myself going, I remember when it was all the territories.
But it worked though, because I mean,
Yeah. So
40
don't,
years later, this is one of the biggest enterprises in all global entertainment.
right. And so, but talk about the moments like Hogan slamming Andre. And then, we have the moment now. People don't want to talk about it, but when you have Eddie Guerrero and Benoit celebrating together in the ring after, the end of WrestleMania 20. But one of the entrances that I really remember, and I believe this was last year, was Edge coming in, and he did it with the song South of Heaven by Slayer.
Yeah.
That's one of the entrances that you definitely remember through the year. I'm like, oh, that's Slayer. And I was like, oh my God, they're playing Slayer. And and so I'm pretty sure they had to pay a little bit to get the licenses for that song, but it was one of the entrances you definitely remember. Just like when Bray Wyatt, when he came in with the band that originally did the song Live in Fear. They actually played the song live for him at WrestleMania 30 down in New Orleans. And so those are the kind of things I remember. The matches, yeah, the matches are great, obviously. But the moments are the ones that make the hair on your arm stand up, or a lot of times for me, it is the entrances. And watching Edge come in like with that, obviously, Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off the ladder, that's a big one too. But I don't know. For me, it's those kind of moments that make you just, oh, okay, now I'm noticing this, and that's usually the entrances for me. So, Justin, what about you?
Call me biased, but it's the WrestleMania streak.
Oh, Taker.
Taker. How can you? I can't. I mean, the streak that never should have been broken from the hands of Brock Lesnar.
Right. I agree.
I mean, even Marquez came out and was honest and said, you know what, Bray should have taken my streak, and you know what, he's right. I don't think beating Taker, especially now since they are erasing Brock from WWE history. I mean, beating Taker for Brock didn't do anything for him, honestly. Yeah, he was the guy, but he already went through half the legends at the time. But
Right.
that's what kept you at the eight. I think after 10 consecutive wins. I mean, look at what he's been able to accomplish. There's something that wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't a streak that was, all right, planned up 40 years ago. I've just got to find the right guy to do it. No, he came in. It was one, then two, then don't forget Giant Gonzalez, which was probably one of the worst WrestleMania matches he's had. Not because of him.
That's what been one of the worst WrestleMania matches, period.
And then let's not forget about, having the Brothers of Destruction and facing his brother not once but twice. Then you got facing, remember that handicap match with A-Train and Big, it was A-Train and Big Show?
I believe, because I don't remember who Undertaker's partner was supposed to be.
It was supposed to be one of the MMA fighters or something like that broke into the business, and
but
I don't remember the name. But then he
didn't meet
carried himself.
he didn't meet expectations, and so that's why they were like cut him.
What about reviving Ric Flair's career? Because that was a story that was told that if it wasn't for that match, Ric Flair may have retired by then because he was going through a slump. At that WrestleMania. It was when he won his 10th WrestleMania. And it was what Taker put him through. That was a story that they documented, I heard from Flair and Taker himself about that WrestleMania itself. Because he was kind of going in a slump. He didn't really know which way to go. And this kind of really rejuvenated Flair's, hunger for wrestling again. And kind of revived him a little bit.
Well, so Flair was also already in his 50s by then, so he should have kind of dialed it back anyway.
But then it's moments like that, and then you get like the casket match with Mark Henry, and now you're at 15. You're like, all right, is Batista the one to do it? And then you hear about the Edge story where Edge was supposed to do it apparently, and then he was like, dude, I'm not breaking that streak. And then you get into the Shawn Michaels and Triple H, which was a 4-year story that no one ever thought of, and it probably goes down to one of the best WrestleMania storylines of all time. One of them, right? I mean, from Shawn Michaels ending his career, you couldn't plan that out any more perfect, right? I mean, and then going into Triple H into that Hell in a Cell match. I mean,
yeah, because they had 2 or 3 years, and Taker and Triple H, they've had 3 matches?
4-year run.
Yeah, and like the Hell in a Cell match, and that was with HBK as the special guest referee. And actually, I will take it back. There is one in-ring moment that actually does stand out for me, and that is, I just got to say, I'm sorry, I love you. That's that's all you have to say. It's just that moment there. That's one of the ones.
Captured the whole thing in like those few words there.
If I'm not mistaken, too, Triple H is the only wrestler that faced Taker at WrestleMania 3 times.
I think so, yeah.
Because he had the one earlier, and I remember that one because that's when he chokeslammed. I want to say he chokeslammed him off the scaffold or something like that.
Yeah, out in like the tech area.
Yeah,
in the crowd.
Exactly. And then you had the other two.
It chokeslammed him like off the backside of it there.
Yeah,
and that was a really good match because I know that they had a documentary of that. But anyways, it was those moments because it gave Taker a reason to tune in. And like you said, I didn't watch wrestling for a whole year. And then I came tuned back into the Rumble and like, all right, who's Taker's opponent? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was that type of stuff. And then to be able to see him kind of rebounce back from that horrible, I don't think of it as Brock broke the streak so much so as Undertaker had an eye-opening life incident, because he got concussed severely and, he had to be rushed to the hospital.
It was bad enough Vince McMahon actually left the Superdome, went to the hospital, and he said, y'all handle this. Because he was that concerned.
Possession, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but the way that he was able to bounce back, and you know what? As much as I wanted to see him won his last match inside a ring, the way that they choreographed and cinematically shot that final match with AJ Styles, I think it was well worth it. You want to leave off of a high note, and so I mean, you could have left off with John Cena and it would have been fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those things that
It
when
felt
you knew,
appropriate to me.
yeah, I mean, when you finally, though, see, I've always experienced, and this is my person. I was saying this for years. I've always wished that Taker and Kane had their final match at WrestleMania, where then somebody, even I'm gonna throw out there, uh, uh it was a Dude Love at the not Dude Love. What was the found? Who was the founder? And it wasn't Ted DiBiase, the manager of that, for the Undertaker. It was Bruce
Oh,
Pritchard
Brother
in
Love.
disguise.
Brother
Brother
Love.
Love. I would have
Mm.
loved to see Brother Love finish out the Undertaker. Brought him in, brought him right back out.
Well, DiBiase actually
Yeah. Well,
brought
yeah.
him in, but then he immediately went with Brother Love. But it wasn't working out as good, and that's when they brought
Yeah.
in,
Paul Bearer.
Paul
Yep.
Bearer, also
Well, he
known
was
as
actually a
Percy
Paul Bearer,
Pringle,
though.
who actually
Now,
was a licensed mortician, which is the wildest
so
thing.
just in a reference note, I would have loved to see Kane the Undertaker buried alive by Paul Bearer at
That'd
WrestleMania
been
to finish
interesting.
off their career. You know what I'm saying? Like, just to finish
No,
off their
that
career.
that sounds cool. Like have them both just kind of go down together.
Have Paul Bearer, if it went back, it was this was obviously back when Paul Bearer was alive. Something would have happened where both of them fell into the thing, and then even lightning strikes, whatever, you're cool choreographed, because I love the lightning strikes and the mind games and all that stuff that you just couldn't explain, and then just bury both of them, call it a career, both of them, you know what I'm saying? And then if you want to come back at it, Mark Calloway and Glenn Jacobs, fine by me, I don't care. But you know, the two brothers that had a history with each other to really just finish their careers off together and be buried together. I think that would have been the biggest symbolized finish to any story of them all. If you don't, if you understand, if
Uh,
you understood the history between those two men.
Well, Randy, how about you? Like some of your favorite WrestleMania moments.
I was already kind of brushed on the Edge spearing Jeff Hardy, coming off the ladder and hanging from the belts there. Um, might not be popular to reference Chris Benoit and Eddie kind of standing there together in a meaningful moment of,
Rey
a couple of
Mysterio, how
guys.
about that?
Or
Because he
yeah,
had his
I'm
moment a
sorry.
couple years later.
Certainly, like, it's like seeing some of the WCW guys get their moment.
Right.
Yeah.
When you had people finally embracing some of the smaller guys like that and
Can we throw
seeing
out
how
one person that I think maybe that doesn't get as much recognition? Um, the Miz beating John Cena. I mean, I know it was through the hands of The Rock, but that still rejuvenated his career, and also showed me that I think it set up scenarios like Daniel Bryan to have those mid card guys to have the main event spotlights.
it also allow me to go with something just a little bit more recent. Think about the moment with Kevin Owens taking on Steve Austin, and
Yeah.
Steve taking a suplex out onto the concrete and looking like he really hadn't stepped away that much, and having that in a way that I really didn't think I was ever going to see again. I didn't think I was ever
Yeah.
going to see him wrestle again, period. And then to have him taking bumps out on the concrete and just having this match between kind of the two men of the stunner. That was one of those things that kind of
It
tickled the
reminded you
teenager
back
in me.
when you had like the Michaels and Foley, and you had like Bradshaw and Steve Austin all come down to the ring in the middle of a match to kind of hit their signatures on somebody, just for the hell of it.
But it was cool though, because it wasn't pretty, like it wasn't a
Mm.
beautiful technical wrestling match. It was just this brawl that kind of went everywhere, but it kind of touched on those nostalgic feelings, but also on those guttural feelings of, I'm watching just two men just beat the crap out of each other. And of course, getting that childlike, teenage like nostalgic kick. And I think I've said that word like three times, but
It fits,
it's
it fits.
exactly what it was for me. It brought me such a childlike sense of joy. It
Although
was
I don't
awesome,
think
and that stuck out too.
And I also don't think like the match, this one y'all mentioned was a big turnover, but you do have to, I think, recognize the, WrestleMania 35 we mentioned earlier with Ronda and Becky and Charlotte main eventing, because how many female matches have main evented WrestleMania? And we have two nights, and we still don't see females main eventing. This was one of the at the beginning of all this. This was one of my trying to understand. This was like, if you win the Women's Royal Rumble, when they first introduced the Women's Royal Rumble, they were like, you're gonna go main event one of the nights at WrestleMania, and then they didn't. Like you saw, was it Charlotte and Ronda? Was like a year or two ago that because
Mm,
Ronda won. It was 2 years ago. Ronda won the Royal Rumble. I was like, isn't that a perfect time for Ronda and Charlotte and themselves, just two of them, to main event WrestleMania night one, and then you had Brock and Roman night two or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Like,
uh,
I know WWE is
well,
kind of sketchy about that, but
right now, with the storyline, with the whole ending the story, Cody Rhodes, finishing the story, and then and like I said on an episode a couple of weeks ago, there were so many other stories that are also ending that I don't know, maybe they don't realize it, but that should be the theme for this year is
it's indie story.
the ending of stories. In fact, it makes me want to say, okay, bring out the Happy Monday song. Here's where the story ends. It's actually kind of a catchy song if you ever listen to it, but but they're bringing all those storylines, and the fact they're going to have two matches involved with that. The tag team match in the first night to determine whether or not they're going to have bloodline rules, which and we'll get into our predictions. It's almost a guaranteed. Yes, they're going to have Cody as the underdog on night two, as
Right.
much as possible. But because of the way they're doing that, so they're not giving room. It's not just any of the women to headline one of the nights. It's like anybody else. Period.
Yeah.
Because they've elevated those storylines above just about anything else. Because The Rock is going to be involved. And The Rock, who's Dwayne Johnson, the biggest star in Hollywood right now. But
And
now
I
he's
felt like, they had to make so much storyline adjustments to this layout because they kind of had you twist and turn throughout the last 3 months. Are we going to see Roman Rock? Are we? But Cody won the Rumble, so how can we not see Cody go after Roman Reigns? It did make sense for a little bit, Cody that could face Seth Rollins, but then he's not officially
it,
finishing the story. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it was the fans who turned that
exactly.
organically, and this is why I'm
So
saying the big
now,
difference between Triple H and VKM was VKM wouldn't listen to the fans. Triple H does because
but
he
you didn't
knows
have a choice because you would have got a riot if you did
they
not
were
see
going
Cody and
to
Roman.
exactly, and they were
So,
talking
but
about.
then now
Am I
we're
being
possibly seeing. Go
am
ahead.
I am I being too much of a good boy for WWE on this one? Because I actually really like having these or this storyline kind of be a feature of both nights.
Yeah.
I feel
I,
like a lot of people
It's
feel like
putting
it's a foregone conclusion what's going to happen night one on that one,
um
and what I like about it, maybe I'm a little dense, but I actually am not quite sure how like what direction that would go, and I'm really fairly intrigued with either way that it goes, and so maybe I'm doing exactly what WWE wants me to do. But frankly,
mm,
I'm absolutely fine with it and I like it.
um yeah, I mean, you like WWE, you like the storyline, and um
I mean, after it resonated, I'm fine with it. I just feel
yeah.
like it almost seemed to me building up to it. There wasn't a clear. I mean, I don't think you have to have a clear direction, but
It's the story that had to redefine itself really by
yeah.
force.
Hmm.
But
But
is it
I
by
think when
force in a
they
good way or a bad way? Because I feel like the force was how can we include The Rock in this story, in not just in the storyline, but in a match this year. It felt like the only reason why they made this a tag team match was to make sure The Rock was giving his, his way,
They
not his
want
way,
to.
but
I feel like it started out as something that was almost just as much merchandise move as it was anything else. And
Uh,
it started off a little bit tone deaf, but I think that the way they had to adapt it because of the outcry against it has been fairly entertaining. and maybe even shedding a little bit of that PG in a way that is not necessarily super offensive, but is making things a little edgy in a way that I like. I think that when they did accept that they needed to redefine how this thing was going to go, I think they've done it in a way that's entertained me fairly consistently.
When it comes to, we're talking about like the women's matches, not a headline in either night. I'm looking at both the women's matches, and yeah, they're going to be good matches, but I can't see neither of the two women's titles matches are elevated enough right now that they could headline either night, because Rhea Becky, is obviously going to be bigger than Bailey and oh my God, who's the
Io Sky?
Io Sky? Thank you. Neither one of them, they're not big. Now, Becky and Rhea is bigger than Bailey and Io Sky. I will say that. And Rhea Becky is going to be good. Becky is going to be a good match, but it's not bigger than some of the other ones. Now, Ronda, Charlotte, yes, that one was huge. When you had
but see, I would go to argument, okay, so Paul Heyman says it's the best. If you're not main eventing in the show, you might as well kick off the show. So Ronda, not Ronda, but Rhea and Becky, they're not main eventing night 1 or night 2. So guess what? They're kicking off the show.
They're kicking off night
They're
1.
setting the pace
like
night 1 for the entire what we should be able to see for WrestleMania.
And I think it'll be a very good match. And like I said, the opening match of the night, in this case, the opening match of 2 nights, you've got to, like you said, you got to set that pace. And this is going to be a very, very, very good one. People want to see this match. They're looking forward to it. They've even had it set up to where they had the pull apart on Raw. Anytime you have a pull apart,
so you set that up. This is still so fresh into people's minds.
Right.
You got to kick things off with it.
I just don't think it's not big enough to headline, not like Bianca and Sasha Banks was a few years ago. Now that one was another headliner for other reasons, and that was like a fantastic match. That's been one of the best WrestleMania matches, period. But you actually have to have everything surrounding it, and nothing right now is bigger than Cody finishing the story. Yeah. And so that's why you're going to have that. It's going to be the headliner on both nights. But speaking of all that,
I'm asking you that
because we're about to get into our predictions, by the way.
Let's just dive into it. Becky, Rhea, night 1 of WrestleMania. Listen, you got. I said that this story did not need a Rumble win, which is I'm glad to see it didn't happen. But at the same time, you saw people like Nia Jax, who's been kind of outside trying to get her 2 cents in for a while. This exploded over Monday Night Raw where they broke out, and I'm glad we finally got to see something. We saw The Rock and Cody last week. Now we see Becky and Rhea, so it kind of just builds the hype. Is it time? Because I feel like Rhea is at the top of her game. I just don't know much more challengers on the Raw brand that can go toe to toe with Rhea. So, is it time to move on from Becky? I feel like this is a catch-22 because Becky's, is a workhorse too. She's doing a lot, and does she really need another title run?
My personal thing is, and I really hate to bring like external like happenings into this, but Becky has also not re-signed the contract. Her contract expires here soon. And I don't want to.
Which is also something that a lot of other people are having.
But I don't want to bring that as a catalyst for my prediction. But at the same time, I would have said this if I didn't know about the contract thing. You're right. Becky right now, Rhea is like the hottest thing since Sunburn. She is technically a heel. Fans cheer for her every time she comes out. It's kind of like what we were saying about.
She's like a Roman Reigns, right?
She's like Roman Reigns. Well, she's like. We're like Big Mama.
You do no wrong in the fans' eyes, it seems.
Because and Randy and I were talking this before we start recording. Like Big Mama, when she came out in Chillicothe, oh my God, the fans the place exploded. They love her. Same thing with Rhea. Rhea, she's still part of the Judgment Day. By the way, drop the. Just saying Judgment Day just sounds so much better. but yeah. But
So
and I have my prediction, and then after this, I'm going to get Randy's as well. My prediction is Rhea is going to win this match. She's going to retain her title, and she's also going to leave Judgment Day at some point before WrestleMania weekend's over. She's dropping out of Judgment Day because she's become much bigger. Being part of the faction is actually kind of hurting her a little bit, hurting her character because she needs to break out on her own and become a face because people are cheering her. Anyway, what do you think, Randy?
I think at this point she's nearly her own entity. And I definitely believe that she's going to come out of this one victorious. I think Becky Lynch obviously has been pouring on some steam, especially since the Royal Rumble. But I don't know that she's the one to knock off somebody who's going quite as hot as Rhea Ripley is right now, and especially not at WrestleMania.
Right.
So okay, so I mean, here's my also, and I'm not trying, like, I look into also the personal lives. I mean, Seth is probably. I'm gonna give you a poll prediction down the next night. I think Seth is dropping that title one way or the other. And you talk about, maybe the reason why she hasn't signed a contract is maybe both of them do need time away. They have been the faces of, or big contributors to the faces of Raw over the past year, keeping it afloat, keeping the storylines going. That I think that they may be taking some time off, especially they well-deserved time off. Let me tell you that. But I see Rhea Ripley. I mean, like you guys mentioned, I think this story is going to come back around to Bianca Belair next year, to be honest, and maybe see that feud that they waited off originally, because I thought so much last year was going to be Rhea versus Bianca, but this was a rival also that was pretty intense down at NXT. Instead, we saw Rhea and Charlotte, so I think that would be a good build up for that. But but I think it also lines up so, like, what, Becky's going to have to make a return. I don't think she's going nowhere with the company. I think she'll stay in with the company. I mean, she has to come back and be like, what, I got some unfinished business still.
I think everybody could kind of benefit from a refresh on that anyway. They could use some time off to kind of help both rebuild them personally, but also just from having so much exposure over such a long period of time. Like I personally would be good if they disappeared for like 6 months, not because I'm tired of them, but just because I think it'd be good for everybody,
you also
just
got
to kind of
some
refresh
great
everybody's palate. Yeah.
You got some, great talent that needs the spotlight too over the next couple months.
I think everybody wins if they do take some time off.
All right, this one's interesting. We put this together. That next match is that 6-pack ladder match for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. You have the Judgment Day, Damian Priest, Finn Balor. You got
they're the current champions.
Correct. You have the Miz and R-Truth, which I think I like them. I mean, they rejuvenated their tag team faction that I like. DIY and Jardy Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, New Day, Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, New Catch Republic, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, and A-Town Down Under, Austin Theory and Grayson Waller.
I am actually going to go with Gargano and Ciampa on this one, just because even though they've been an established team in NXT, or if they weren't a team, they were fighting each other in NXT. And so they've come up, they've established themselves down there, and it took them a while to get up to the main roster. And I think that may have been part of their decision.
Tommaso's injury, I think, really
right. So, but now they're up here, and as much as what I'd like to see the Miz and R-Truth, because especially R-Truth, because give him one last shot with a title. But then again, nobody wants to see R-Truth lose it, though. They'll
drop it very quickly,
right? I mean, because R-Truth, R-Truth is a national treasure at this point. Everybody loves R-Truth because the dude
he's the longest reigning 24/7 champion.
He's because of all his title reigns as a 24/7, the 24/7, 7-Eleven, 995. Because he held that title so many times, he's actually held more titles in WWE history than anybody else now.
All combined.
All combined. So because he's also former tag team champion, former US champion, all that. Yep. And so he's held more titles than anybody else. He's also former NWA world champion. You see that belt right there behind me? Not the one on top of the one, but R-Truth actually held that, maybe not that particular one because that's my replica, but he's actually a former NWA world champion. A lot of people don't realize that because it's not in WWE. But R-Truth, I mean, he's one of those, he can put people over. He is such a phenomenal person in the ring and then
He's what, in
outside
his
the ring.
50s? I mean,
Yeah, he's
how
like
many?
51, 52 years old, and he's
He
still
looks
going.
great. He looks like he's in his 30s, to be honest.
Exactly.
Like,
And he
it's
drops down in
phenomenal.
the splits like nobody's business.
I'm like, ooh, ow, ow. You know, he shouldn't be able to do that, but he can, and he still puts on really good matches. His personality, you know, is one that like, yeah, okay, the character is goofy, but he's fun. He's not stupid. He's kind of goofy, you know, but it makes it entertaining, and that's what we're here to do. And
It
that's
makes
why
sense.
you know, and I think putting the titles on him and Miz, which I like the Miz, and I know I'm kind of in the minority there. A lot of
And the
people
Miz
hate
maybe also, wrapping it up too. I mean,
right. I
don't
mean,
know.
because the Miz, I mean, I think he's like in his 40s.
But I
You
don't
know,
think
if I
they
had to
ever got a
guess.
tag team run that was well appreciative. That if they
Right.
got a chance this time around, then I mean, I would be all in favor
Well,
for it. My other thing is too is I'm kind of actually upset. I'm waiting. The only thing I'm waiting for is WWE to split the tag team titles up again and have a title for Raw brand, have a title for SmackDown
I,
brand. You see DIY and you see
I,
New Cash Republic. They've already faced the Judgment Day for the titles earlier this year.
well, I like actually having the undisputed titles. I wish they would do the same thing with the world title because you already have you know, you already have there's some championships that are exclusive to the brands and the Intercontinental title and the US
Yeah.
title.
And I get
So
that, but
that would
at
be
the
your
same
number.
time,
That's, you know, you're the champion of that brand, and uh by default you're the number one contender for the world title from your brand, and so have that. I mean, but that's going old school, and I know
and I
right
get that,
now.
but we tried that a couple years ago. They did unify those titles, but it did not work out
Well,
because
they
the new
unified.
contract with Roman Reigns.
Yeah, we have a contract with Randy.
Sorry.
See, see, he's smiling because he's like, bring it. So,
Right.
but
But
what do
I
you
don't
think,
know
Randy?
if that I don't know if that works these days, just kind of in the same respect as like AEW tried to do a ranking system where, people are kind of ranked on contention on this arbitrary list based on wins and losses. And it's like you have those, if you have like the Intercontinental Champion and like the US champion be like the default number one contender, I think it makes the booking kind of exhausting, uh, for one, trying to make sure that that's representative of who people are feeling need to be up there. But I almost feel like
Well,
you almost artificially limit it
Well,
again.
well,
here's my argument to that, if you don't mind. I mean, you have two brands, you have two GMs, you have everything is supposed to be separated. So if you have a team on Raw, how are they going back and forth between SmackDown? Because unless they're invited over, they're not. I mean, we've seen fines handed out for going over to opposite brands when they're not supposed to. So
real fines or
I know, but
yeah, that's what I'm
it's the
saying. I mean,
concept is to make it realistic. And for me, I feel like the tag team division has grown up a little bit compared to in the years past. I mean, you have the Authors of Pain, the Viking Raiders still. You still have, what, the Pride that
you
we'll
can
talk
you
about.
can also call that the Paul Levesque influence. Vince McMahon hated tag teams. If
But
you
you have
notice, now
tag
you have
team,
real teams actually making a comeback.
and now you have
Thank
enough to
goodness.
go off of and split the brands up and showcase them more often.
Well, either way, Randy, who do you think is going to win the six-pack challenge here?
I'm going with DIY on that one. I think they've been redefined as well a little bit, and they have this renewed energy and focus that seems to give them some momentum that I can get excited for, a little more so than any of the other teams in the six-pack challenge.
All right, we got a match coming number 3 down the list. Santos Escobar,
You never.
Dominic Mysterio.
Whoa,
What's up?
whoa! We can't move on yet. You never.
I
gave us-
did.
Did you? Who'd
I
you
said
say?
DIY. I did
Oh,
not
so all
like
three
the
of all,
concept.
all
Yeah.
three of us. Okay, cool. I'm
I did
sorry.
not like the concept
My
of
bad.
DIY because they've already challenged, but they're the only team that makes sense. Maybe Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, but I feel like they have some
I
beef
think.
among each
I'm
other.
about to say. I think
I
they're
mean,
about to split up. And
I
also, I'm
know.
going to add one more thing on the prediction here. That Judgment Day, where at least Damian
Split.
Priest is going to
Yeah.
split off because what's he holding? the briefcase.
Well, and also Finn Balor. I haven't heard a new contract when we talk about contracts with Finn
Oh,
Balor.
I didn't
He's
think
coming up
about
at the
Finn
end of the month.
Balor.
Yeah. But no, we
Anyway, you
got
were saying?
Santos and Dominic Mysterio taking on Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee. I was kind of scratching my head this one because I thought Rey was going to choose Carlito. I feel like it's a good spot for a WrestleMania moment like this match ahead, but Dragon Lee, I guess, is going to be in the way. I feel like this was one of the matches that we were just waiting to see what Rey Mysterio health looks like when he returned before we officially announced it. It's a way to get Santos in, Dominic in. And I really feel that this may actually turn around to be Santos and Dominic's favor because I'm looking at Dominic losing to Rey last year. I don't think Dominic will lose to him twice. This may also relate up to next year where Rey could possibly put his career on the line and Dominic could end his father's career.
That would
Definitely
make
a good
sense.
opportunity
1-1
for
at
some long-term
WrestleMania.
storytelling.
Exactly.
Yeah. And and I think they would have carried this had Ray not gotten hurt. They may have done that this year, but this is one of Ray's first matches after coming back from his surgery that he had to have. And I don't even remember what he had now. I don't know if it was a shoulder or a knee or something.
I thought it was a knee or something.
Was it a knee? Yeah. I mean, I'd see
one
Dominic.
Of many knee surgeries.
Yes. I see Dominic and Santos Escobar winning this one. But then again, yeah, that's that. Honestly, that's the one that makes sense. But then again,
Dominic needs it more, in my opinion.
Dominic does need it more. Santos, they're still establishing him more or less as a heel because when he turned on Ray, it was like, oh my god, but then Ray got hurt, so we never really got the payoff from that. And so they may have that, but it's kind of a way of also establishing Santos. And
this is also where you're not going to overworkload put on Ray a little bit. You can kind of carry Dominic. You're not going to overwork Ray. Dragon and Santos can do some high flying moves to really elevate the match there. And it's just a good filler, I think.
And Dominic can do the high flying moves too. I think a lot of people forget. I mean,
he's really come a long way in a short time. And I agree with you too that it only makes sense if Dominic and Santos wins, in my opinion.
Yeah, because it elevating them.
Everybody's going to be happy to see Ray back, and Dragon Lee is going to, flip around and do all that fun high flying stuff. He'll just be happy to be there.
Bold prediction time. Does Carlito turn on LWO and cost Ray and Dragon Lee a match? Because you could have a Dragon Lee and Carlito at some point down the road.
I don't know that it needs that.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's a little over the top for something that's largely going to be kind of filler.
Well, Carlito's return, I mean, it was huge. You got this huge pop, but also the return happened in Puerto Rico, where he's from, and so of course they're going to pop hard for him. And people, I mean, they like Carlito. They like seeing him back. He's a fun character to watch, and I spit in the face of those who are not cool, and he can do that. He can go in the ring, second generation, very good second generation wrestler. But he's never really been above mid card, maybe the top of the mid card, but he's never been above mid card. So,
and really, is he any bigger of a heel if he turns there than if he turns anywhere else?
True. I mean,
yeah.
And he may turn now. It'll get him more reaction if he turns heel and goes, "Well, you fans didn't appreciate me."
I feel like, I mean, obviously, more people are going to see it just because of sheer audience size, but with Carlito being who he is in the position that he is, and it's not to knock him because I love Carlito, but I don't think him turning at WrestleMania makes him like a monster heel versus if he were to turn at like a Backlash or something like that size event.
Right.
I think he would be equally as bad of a guy who spits in the face of people who don't want to be cool if he did it anywhere but WrestleMania.
Makes me kind of mad, Randy, that we actually didn't meet Carlito when they had part of the wrestling events at the Williamsburg, Ohio, because he was actually there a few years ago, and neither Randy or I went. Now we did go later on. We've met some other people, but anyway,
I don't know. Just the way that he looked at last week kind of just offset me. Here's going to be a fun conversation to have: Jay versus Jimmy. Every 15 years, it seems family fight or brothers fight. We saw WrestleMania 10, Brett and Owen. We saw what was it? The Hardy Boys at WrestleMania 25, and now we
Yeah,
see the Usos at
yeah.
WrestleMania 40. I think that this was well needed, and we're just waiting our time. I can't. It's perfect among the stories that's going on in the bloodline. The only thing I'd wish is that I don't know. This is another year without Solo Sikoa on his own, and I think that he does need to start, elevating himself on his own. But um, it's a history in the making here. Jimmy J, what are you guys' thoughts on
I think Jay wins, but through some backfired shenanigans on the part of somebody in the bloodline.
Solo?
Yeah, Solo, like somebody, like it'd be one of them
How
cases.
how
I
much will
mean,
Solo be a part of this match though? You think of brothers, it almost seems to me that Solo has to be a part of this match in order to
you
like
know,
maybe he chooses the right one. I don't know.
I mean, it could be a case of okay, they're holding Jay, down. They're doing something where they're double teaming and whatever, but Solo, I don't think it
Turns?
would be. Maybe I don't think it's necessarily a case of Jimmy holding Jay, going telling Solo, "Come here, other brother, little brother, come here and smack my twin brother," type of deal. I think it'd be something like Roman. Now Roman, I mean, he is their cousin. I mean, and that's a legitimate thing. I mean, they actually are cousins with him. But I could see like him or even Paul Heyman. Um,
See, now you're getting into, I felt for me, a little too much.
but the bloodline,
Because
honestly,
Roman and The Rock have a big match later that night, and I just don't see why Roman needs to get involved. Maybe
well, see,
Paul
that's what I'm
Heyman
saying.
could be
Maybe
downstairs
maybe Paul
giving
Heyman,
directive.
maybe
Yeah.
Paul Heyman.
And
They could
maybe
have.
Solo can be like, you know what? No, I'm not
No, this is
listening to
this
you.
is this is my brother. I mean, his
Yeah.
older brothers, and they're fighting each other. Either that or Rikishi himself comes out, slaps both of them, and they call the match a draw. I
There you
mean,
go.
you never know. I mean, that could happen.
I
Um,
really have no feeling on this one at all.
I know.
Like
I mean,
I've been debating this one for a little bit, and it's a cop out, but I really can't call it on this
I mean,
one.
I'll go Jay, but barely, and I think it'll be because of some backfired shenanigans. That's the only thing.
Like I can't even reason this one out and be like, okay, here's the one that makes sense to me more than the opposite scenario.
Well, I'm
Like I
gonna just
don't even
make you
have
a
that going
draw
for me.
then. I'll just say draw.
Um, a double count out, double disqualify, something like that. I mean, I could easily see that. Um, I mean, either way, I bet Thanksgiving at their house is very interesting right now. So,
um, we get a special treat, which I thought we were never going to get to see. A 6-woman tag match, Damage Control. Asuka, Kairi Sane, and Dakota Kai will take on Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi. Now, this is Jade's first in-ring match, I believe. Bianca and Naomi's kind of been working together the last couple weeks on and off, but they all have one goal in mind, and that is to dismantle Damage Control. I got Bianca, Jade, and Naomi.
I don't see a scenario where Jade Cargill does not come out on the victorious team on this one,
and
especially since
yeah,
we've had to wait since the Rumble to really get a taste of her in ring. Um, I think it would be almost insulting if she didn't come out victorious in this one, and
The only
probably the
thing I
one with the
would
pin.
say, the only thing I would say on this is, we have the difference between faces and heels. Who is she coming out as? Because, you know, we could be misled that she is maybe they do win a match, but she wants to be ultimately probably better than everybody else.
I think
So
that's the person herself.
right,
Not just the wrestler, but I mean that's just her. Which I just want to point out something. I saw Jade Cargill's last AEW match live in person, Cincinnati. I just want to throw that out there, and that's humble brag. But anyway, yeah, y'all could have seen it too, but I went and actually got on TV wearing the
so
armchair
you
booking
got
T-shirt. But
Bianca, Jade,
anyway,
and
yeah,
Naomi.
because it doesn't. This is Triple H booking now, no longer Vince. If it was Vince, for some reason he'll bring people to the main roster and then start burying them. And especially
Yeah,
bringing somebody from a different company, Vince would really bury him to say, no, 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 we are the big. But now, because Vince is no longer the one booking, and it makes
yeah,
sense to have Jade Cargill, you need to push her because you've got all this hype and
true.
hoopla about her joining, you need to actually
Well, and I
She's
think we
been
were
treated like
supposed
a
to
big
get,
star so far, like
exactly.
up
So
till
you
and the
now.
don't,
hype
Like
is going to still be there
yeah,
because I think we're expected to see Charlotte and Jade at some point.
but that I
And the
think that'd
only
be a good match. I mean, they're
that was I
very.
think that was supposed to happen this year until Charlotte got out with an injury.
And honestly, I'll tell you right now, what I think the money match eventually will be is Bianca and Jade against each other. Two.
absolutely,
Yeah.
Oh my
And
God,
I'm
two.
surprised that
absolutely.
didn't happen this year. I mean, maybe, and
Um,
listen, I don't know what contracts look
build
like, but
up,
maybe they're sweet coating
build
this
up.
for next
You
year.
know, build it up, build it up, build it up.
So,
I am glad to see Naomi back. By the way, they need to put her as part of the bloodline. It only
yeah,
makes sense. Her husband
it
is one of the
does.
people involved, so make her part of the
Yeah.
bloodline.
Well, I mean, it all depends what the direction of the bloodline goes down moving forward because, everything is starting to become separated a little bit, between Roman, Rock, the Usos. Like it feels like there's no clear directional path. But, you know, interesting enough, this next match, Steve, I think this is your favorite match. This is more, in a sense of the title that's on the line. We have the Intercontinental Championship. Sami Zayn taking on Gunther. Sami Zayn winning this. What was it, like a tournament or something like that? That battle royal
or was it a
gauntlet?
gauntlet something? Either way, he had to earn to
And
get that
yep.
title shot.
And
It's coming
I
into
feel
this with
like
some
this
momentum.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
listen, this is from last year. He main evented. It was his spotlight. He kind of fills in. He almost didn't have a WrestleMania match this year. I just don't know if it's time to take the title off of Gunther yet. I mean, unless Gunther's
um,
going for the WWE
and
Championship,
that's actually what
I
I
don't
was going to
know.
say. Gunther, he is now the greatest Intercontinental Champion ever. By the way, the Honky Tonk Man was never great. Honky Tonk Man, he just benefited from being friends with Hogan. And so that record should have never been held by the Honky Tonk Man. But that being said, now Gunther not only has the longest single reign, now he has the longest cumulative days in the reign too, because he actually passed up Pedro Morales, because
Yeah.
Pedro Morales had actually held the Intercontinental title twice, and he had a ton of days cumulative. He actually had more days than the Honky Tonk. The Honky Tonk Man only held it once, but not Gunther with his one reign. I mean, that basically they should just rename that the Gunther title, because I mean he is actually he's brought prestige back to it. Gunther is so talented in the ring, and it's like one of the cases he can beat you in so many different ways. You say, okay, name his finishing move. Well, he has multiple finishing moves, and not just like, okay, he has one like impact move and then one submission move. He has like several of each. I mean, he just beats you, pounds you, pounds you, pounds you
Mm-hmm.
until you're either going to submit because he's going to get you in some submission move, or he's going to drop that power bomb, and then he'll drop it, but he's laying on you at the same time. So so you're already, and yes, I do realize, we're talking about something that's predetermined, but at the same time, I mean, Gunther makes it look very, very real. But
Even his body transformation that he's had during this title reign has
yes,
made it look like, man, this is so important to me. I got to transform my body just to keep this. Like, this is the fitness level of this title requires, like it's been so exhausting that I've transformed to keep this title for
and
this
So,
record amount of time.
so you mentioned that you actually mentioned something very interesting back in January, that there is a certain premium live that's coming our way here in September, I believe. That may favor Gunther maybe taking the next step up. I don't think that the World Heavyweight Championship is going to have a champion that's going to hold the title for a whole year. Yeah, Damian Priest could become champion this weekend and beat whether it's Drew or Seth, but this could set up for Gunther later on this year becoming World Heavyweight Champion.
yes, and
Therefore, he would have to drop it to Sami Zayn, in my belief. So I
and
have Sami Zayn as a victor.
same here, and it's because this is like some of the older storytelling. You saw this happen with Bret Hart, and then you saw it happen like immediately with Shawn Michaels, and you've seen it happen with some other ones where in fact, Randy Savage is another one that they did this with. They put the Intercontinental title on them, and they saw how they were, as a champion. They made them look, because Randy Savage held the Intercontinental title for a while. Because if you look at all the reigns, Randy Savage actually has one of the longer reigns. And they saw how they were as a champion. Okay, we're not going to start you as a world champion. Obviously, we're going to put one underneath that. Randy Savage did good. Who were the other ones? Bret Hart, because Bret Hart was Intercontinental champion. He lost it to his brother-in-law, the British Bulldog, at SummerSlam '92 in Wembley. And then a month later, Bret beat Flair for the world title. And at the same time, Shawn Michaels beat the Bulldog for the Intercontinental title. So Bret, now he's more associated with the world title because Bret lost to Yokozuna and then ended up getting it back a year later. But then Shawn Michaels was the Intercontinental champion. They had that whole thing with him. He's a champion, but then he gave it up. Then he got it back, but then he gave it up, and then he got it back. But he was the Intercontinental champion until finally they trusted him enough to put the world title on him, but then he also lost his smile and gave that up, but that's another story. But that's how they actually, something, because Gunther, he's proven himself. Gunther is believable holding a title. Honky Tonk Man was not believable. I'm just going to throw that out there. But some other ones now that they're not hot shotting every title like they did, there for years, like during the Attitude Era and the years following that with the, ruthless aggression and all that. Well, they were hot shotting every title. It's like, well, so-and-so's a former world champion. It's like, well, so is everybody else now. So it's not as special. And now with Gunther being the Intercontinental champion, like I said, he's brought more prestige back to it. Do you realize that they actually went, what was it, like a year? They didn't even defend the Intercontinental Championship on any pay-per-views at all. They would have it defended at like at Raw or SmackDown or whichever one it happened to be on. But
I didn't realize they went that long ago.
They went a while without actually defending it on any pay-per-views. So now Gunther comes in there and he's got the title and he's held it for so long. I don't even remember who he beat for the title, but it kind of makes sense. Now, somebody, once again, a story ending for him to give it to Sammy. Sammy has proven himself. Sammy is extremely popular with the fans. By the way, Vince McMahon didn't really care for Sammy, not as a person, but he didn't really care for Sami Zayn in the ring. He didn't like his character. The fans were behind it. That's why Sammy went from, 2 years ago, he was doing the job for what's his nose from Jackass.
Johnny Knoxville.
Johnny Knoxville. Thank you. He did the job, for Johnny Knoxville. And then the next year, all of a sudden, he's in like one of the main event matches, and he is extremely popular. So I'm thinking Sami Zayn takes it.
So Gunther did defeat it from Ricochet back in 2022.
Ricochet, okay.
Randy, who do you got?
I stay with Gunther on this one. Sami Zayn comes in with momentum, but I still don't think he's the one.
So my only other thing is that if we're choosing Sami Zayn, is how far are we going to keep him out of that title picture? If he's moving up to the World Heavyweight Championship, if that's not going to be until later on this year, could you maybe have him drop that IC title a little closer to time, like maybe SummerSlam? So, but I got Sami Zayn too, and that actually influences one of my picks later on here as prediction goes. Main event in are you okay?
I was gonna say, I think Sami Zayn gets it, but this is one of the cases I say, they're no longer hot shotting the title, but I have a feeling Sami Zayn's going to get it and be a transitional champion over to Chad Gable.
That's fine.
So,
Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, no, Seth Rollins, excuse me, I mistyped it.
Yeah, you did.
Seth Rollins take on. I'm sorry, taking on.
How dare you?
Roman Reigns and The Rock. Big stipulations on this one. I still don't think The Rock's ready for in-ring action all the way yet. So you're going to see Roman probably do a lot of work. Maybe The Rock gets beat up on.
The Rock looks phenomenal.
But you're taking a risk out of these three. One of these three guys getting hurt for night two. One wrong move. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that they couldn't pull it off, but what happens if Seth re-aggravates his knee or Cody and Roman gets hurt? Among the biggest storyline coming up next. I have Roman and The Rock.
I have Roman and The Rock.
You say everything goes all out,
Absolutely Roman and The Rock on that one.
Yeah. Because
I don't think there's any way he gets a clear shot on night two.
Exactly. They're going to turn Cody into this underdog because people like the underdog. That's why people across the country right now with the Final Four are cheering for North Carolina State, because they are such a Cinderella underdog kind of story. So Cody,
but it's not going to come without the hands of either Seth turning or the Bloodline's help. It has to.
The Bloodline's going to help. It's going to be the Bloodline help, and I do think that Seth and Cody, they're going to have some issues and now they both have matches the following night,
Yes.
but I think they beat, they Rock and Roman, they win it. They hurt Cody again. They've been like literally whipping him with a belt the past couple of weeks on Raw. They whipped both him and Seth 2 nights ago on Raw. And I think they also hurt Seth, and they end up, and I know this is bleeding into the next night. They're going to end up costing Seth.
Yep.
Yeah, Seth, they're going to end up hurting him to the point where they're going to cost him his title against Drew. With Cody, they're going to hurt him, but it's going to be motivating him, to go out and win the next night against other bloodlines. It's almost like the Daniel Bryan situation at WrestleMania 30, where they put all the odds against him, and then he still came out victorious at the end because, people want to see it. So
yeah.
But
I agree. Which it leads right into night 2. Match 1 of night 2 is the World Heavyweight Championship. Drew McIntyre, who's kind of been an afterthought of all of this, takes on Seth Rollins for the that title. CM Punk's supposed to be at ringside, being guest commentary, the best uses you could possibly use out of him. I say Drew's gonna win, but I also see Damian cashing in his money in the briefcase, becoming the World Heavyweight Champion.
Same. I see Drew's winning. He's taking the title. Damian's cashing in and taking the title, himself, because everybody's waiting for Damian to cash in anyway. And
I'm still not sure on Priest cashing in, but I'm definitely with you two on Drew comes away victorious on this one and has the
other
title.
thing is, I haven't heard anything about. I mean, I really haven't heard anything about Drew being in his contract extension. Also, that's another one to look out. So. But
that's why he's not going to be a long-term champion. He's going to get it, but then he's going to lose it. So,
the second match of the night, 6-man tag team match, the Pride, Angelo Dawkins, Bobby Lashley, and Montez Ford taking on the Final Testament, which could be just called the Final Testament. Akam, Karrion Kross, and Razor. This has been a feud that's been going back since January, since the beginning of the year, when they brought back Authors of Pain, and I think I'm more excited to see Paul Ellering more than this match itself. But I got the Pride winning, in my opinion.
I think the Pride has it on this one. Certainly get me a lot more excited than the Testament does as far as coming out victorious on this one. Definitely excited to see Paul Ellering, like you are as well, one of the best wrestling managers of all time. Absolutely. But definitely going with the Pride.
That's a hard one.
True too. But I like
because the Final Testament, also known as Authors of Pain. I mean,
you have to look at the Authors of Pain and why they left to begin with. They were kind of a little bit unsafe to work with. Hopefully, a lot has changed since then. I did like them. Maybe this is an uprise, but I haven't seen I've seen it in the past, but they just don't utilize these vicious factions anymore. I see more utilization out of Angelo Dawkins, Bobby Lashley, Montez Ford over Akam and Razor. They could be a dominant team, but you have to get rid of a dominant team in order to fill one in. You already have a lot of like the Bloodline, Judgment Day, that you just.
I'm also trying to look at then what? What happens after this?
Nothing.
And if they this match here is just you won the feud. That's for either one. So
But if you create a tag team title on SmackDown, guess what? You have the golden opportunity.
If they split the title back up and they ununify it,
could you see the WWE make a trio championship?
No, because you don't. I don't see them doing that because it's not. AEW, they're not the first one to have a 6-man tag team.
So do you got the Final Testament winning?
It's a hard one. I mean, I'm not going to lie because
draw.
No, they're not going to have. They don't like having draws. They don't like having double. I mean, they do it when it makes sense, but I can't. They don't like doing those kind of double count out, double disqualification.
It feels like the match
on WrestleMania. They don't like doing those at the big pay-per-views.
It reminds me of Santos Escobar, Dominic taking on Rey and Dragon. They just filled this right in.
And I mean, I'm actually going to go with the Final Testament just because this would give them kind of a push, and because the Pride, the Street Profits, if you want to go and call them that. I mean, they are an established team, and this will kind of give credibility to.
So if we're keeping tallies, only 2 matches that I think we have disagreements on so far between all of us. All right, next match is that triple threat match for the United States Championship. We see
Actually,
I'm sorry, LA Knight versus AJ Styles. Excuse me,
I'm going to LA Knight just because right now he's another one that the fans are definitely behind.
Yeah.
And AJ Styles, he can take a loss, no problem. It's not going to hurt him.
But this is also a match that I think people like to see if you are dated back to the whole TNA days.
Right. And I mean, I think this is going to be a definitely match I want to watch because I think it's going to be a great match because look at the two guys who are in there. You know, they're going to give you a good match.
They will.
But I'm going with LA Knight on this one.
Agreed. Definitely LA Knight on this one. I think the fans might half riot if it goes any other way on that one.
Yeah.
AJ can definitely sustain the loss and not really have any kind of harm from it. But I think
Plus,
LA
I feel
Knight,
he's up in
as
the
hot
air
as he
right
is,
now.
still gets a boost.
Well,
AJ's up in the air where his direction's going, honestly. I know he's trying out this new persona, but I don't know how well it's really working, and I'm not really perceiving it all that well, and maybe this is just a biased opinion. So if a loss, maybe if you take a loss, you could now go back to the drawing boards and say, all right, did this persona work? And if so, how can we make it better, or let's change it up?
Well, I think Chad Allegra, also known as Carl Anderson, the reason I say that he's an NWF guy. I think him and Luke Gallows, them and AJ, they've been kind of on the outs lately. And like you said, it's a mystery. Okay, what's AJ going to be doing?
Bring back Omos to team up with AJ Styles once more to take on Gallows and Anderson.
Omos just got married, so he's a little busy right now. So which is kind of funny.
Listen, he was just wolfing down some food the other day on live YouTube with Otis and Big E.
That'd be kind of an eating contest I'd like to see because
they're trying to eat a whole pizza.
I could three of them could do it, but anyway, but yes.
Triple threat match coming up: United States Championship. Logan Paul, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton. I feel like this is a match that kind of takes him off Randy Orton. Because I have Sami Zayn winning. I'm also thinking Kevin Owens can actually use the United States Championship.
Well,
I think Randy is a great opponent to me. I mean, he could be another person, but
you said Sami Zayn. I'm pretty sure you meant Logan Paul.
Logan Paul. I'm sorry.
But yeah, Logan.
So what I was going to say was that because I have Sami Zayn winning the IC title.
Gotcha.
I could see Kevin Owens win the US title again. And, I don't know if Randy needs a title on him. If he's going to use a title, I think if it's a big title.
Randy need a title?
Does Randy need a title?
You need a title. I mean, you already have a title of Rescue Randy.
I don't think so. I think I'm good.
Okay.
Does Logan need a title?
I'll stick with Rescue Randy.
I think Kevin Owens.
I think that's ran its course for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kevin Owens takes this.
Randy doesn't need it.
Yeah, they're not going to put a title on Orton right now because right now Randy Orton is there to bring the new guys up and help actually train them because he's become that veteran that he's become that legend he used to beat. Now he is the legend. But he doesn't need the title. Kevin Owens makes a little bit more sense, and it'll be Kevin Owens pinning Randy Orton. Because that'll bring
Logan Paul out of the picture.
Get Logan Paul out of the picture because Logan Paul's not going anywhere with the company, anywhere else outside the company because now he's got an endorsement deal with the company. They have his product is going to be on the ring mat.
Well, you could also have a feud down the road like SummerSlam if nothing else comes up. So.
Maybe.
I got Kevin Owens. Is everyone good on Kevin Owens?
Yes, everybody's good on Kevin Owens.
Absolutely.
I'm having to switch cameras. There we go because my one camera keeps messing up.
WWE Women's Championship. Bailey taking on
Bailey.
Is everyone good?
Bailey on that one.
Io Sky.
Absolutely, Bailey.
Winner. Everyone's going Bailey across the board.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, the second night,
I'll riot if Bailey doesn't do it.
I mean, you know what? The second night, there's not a lot of commentary to say about these matches. Bailey, I mean, it's obviously an obvious one. It's like she's had her own story. Ending of the story, finishing the story because she won the Rumble. Now she's coming back after her title against a member of the faction she created, and then they turned on her, so it makes sense for her to win it. It just kind of adds to it. Now, what they do with her after that, of course, she'll be fighting all them off, but Damage Control I think there's a good chance that they may be splitting apart from the night before anyway.
I know Asuka still hasn't healed from last time from her injury. I know she has a little minor injury, so I think maybe possibility. But yeah, Bailey's just a good candidate. I think she deserves it. She deserves that WrestleMania spotlight that the 4 horsewoman. She's the only one that has not gotten that spotlight yet.
Please give me Bailey with the
Yes.
title. I'm begging them.
That's the
Please
only
give me
one.
Bailey with the title.
No, you don't have to bring back the Bailey buddies.
No.
But please put the title back on
So,
Bailey.
and then we got the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns. I think we all can almost agree Cody Rhodes has to finish this story.
Cody
stipulations, I think you're going to get some help. Maybe Stone Cold, maybe. I mean, I know they're throwing big.
I tell you right now, there's 2 other names I'm gonna throw in here.
You get the over under on LA on MJF.
And that's one of the names I was going to throw up is MJF.
That would be so cool.
MJF.
I know it would be.
It came out 2 days ago.
That would be marking out like a little fat man that had the script in front of him.
Did he actually sign with WWE? Because it came
well,
out.
See, that's the thing. Nobody seems to really know. Like at least
because it came
any
out
of my
April
reliable
1st.
sources that I've followed for years, like none of them have been able to give me any insight on this at all.
Well, I think MJF and I think the
he's
other
been
one
teasing it the last 2 years.
Well, I think the other person.
Yeah, but it's MJF. You never know when he's being serious and when he isn't.
Well, the other person, and this is a name we have not even mentioned the entire episode. We had not mentioned MJF until now either. The other person that could come help Cody is his older brother, Goldust. Dustin Rhodes, Goldust.
What is his status with the company?
I don't know, because if you notice, I mean, he was basically calling AEW his last hurrah, but because he was there with his brother, but then his brother left, and so
that's something I really didn't consider, but boy, that'd be kind of a feel-good moment, wouldn't it?
He's not doing a lot in AEW, and so
you got Stone Cold, you got Dustin for one of the, you got Dustin for the Usos, and then you got Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then you got MJF.
I don't think
levels out the playing field.
Stone Cold's not coming back. Not for this. I don't think MJF. Well, MJF definitely could. CM Punk's still going to be around. I don't see CM Punk getting involved. I don't want to see CM Punk.
I don't see where he fits in that one.
I mean, you could also have Seth Rollins.
Just to have an appearance. I mean,
not just for an appearance, because John Cena is another one that's, I don't want to say it's ran this course, but bringing Cena back is not going to add any value to anything. It's not going to get people talking. But,
okay. Any ECW people to stop Paul Heyman?
Maybe
Tommy Dreamer.
Tommy Dreamer.
I don't know.
Tommy Dreamer is considered persona non grata right now in WWE.
One and done. I mean,
no, he's because of the plane ride from hell. Because they're still getting backlash from that. So Tommy Dreamer, they're not going to be bringing him back anytime soon.
Dudley Boys. Well, maybe not the Dudley Boys.
No, not the Dudley Boys. RVD, no, because
Sandman.
He's doing something. Maybe. I mean, we'll have to.
I'm just throwing it out there. Anyone that could potentially stop Paul Heyman or Solo Sikoa.
No, because
I got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, Goldust and MJF are the only 2 people I can honestly think of off the top of my head. But it is Philadelphia, so Philadelphia is going to be strong behind Bo Dallas, maybe,
or Uncle Howdy. Put it that way.
They are not going to bring Bo Dallas back in this capacity. He's going to come back on its own in a totally different storyline because
I'm just throwing out names. You throw it.
Give me Dustin or MJF, I think that's really about it for me.
We do have to mention here, I don't want to make sure this episode leaves without just giving recognition to the class of 2024 in WWE's Hall of Fame that will be aired immediately following SmackDown at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia on Friday night. We have names of Paul Heyman, which is going to be the highlight around the center of attention. Paul Nakano, say that correctly?
Bull Nakano, yep.
Bull Nakano, sorry.
Yep.
Thunderbolt Patterson.
I'm actually kind of surprised to see Thunderbolt Patterson going in because he was not a WWF guy as far as I know.
However,
which is The Rock's mom.
So, and she did a lot of booking at that time too. And the U.S. Express. I believe I had those names correct, right?
Yeah, Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda. Mike Rotunda, of course, being Bray Wyatt's dad, Barry Windham, being
And
Bray
something's
Wyatt's
going to be said about Bray, hopefully. I mean, I know he has that documentary coming out
It's
this
already
weekend
out.
too.
I haven't
It's already
watched
out.
it. It's already out.
Came out
Some
today.
people have watched it. I think it came out yesterday, but
Oh.
some people have already watched it, and some people are like, it's not worth it. Other people have said it had them crying. But
this was a nice, pretty list. I think it's, you talked about it. It's kept short, simple, sweet. You have one guy and you got enough just to get through and in and out. That's kind of how I think Triple H has planned it last couple of years when he, as he's tried to.
The only one that might come up a little bit of a question might be Thunderbolt Patterson, but I mean, he was a legend in Georgia and the Carolinas.
But at least it's not one of those celebrities that did. I mean, can you say Thunderbolt has made an impact in wrestling industry?
He did back in the late 70s, early 80s.
So then I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and it's a very, because and he hasn't really gotten his due. He was always
this isn't Pee Wee
overshadowed.
Herman or anything like that.
Also Thunderbolt Patterson, unfortunately, he wrestled during a time where African American wrestlers were not given their due, and he was part of the time where they're like, "Well, I'm not going to have that black guy come into territory because we already have a black guy in the territory." They would only have like one.
Kind of like we met our quota.
Yeah, I mean, like they might have two. If
it's
kind of like,
I'm hiring one to avoid labor laws or discrimination.
Pretty much. I mean, and Thunderbolt Patterson, I mean, he was actually associated with Ole Anderson, and Ole Anderson, if you really read some of the stuff about him, Ole Anderson, I mean, a lot of minority wrestlers were not fond of Ole Anderson,
right.
And Thunderbolt Patterson being, but they were a tag team at one point, and. But yeah, Leah Maivia, because I mean, she was a promoter, really good promoter. She took over for her mom, because her mom actually, Peter Maivia's wife, she actually did the promoting whenever Peter Maivia, when he passed away, so she was doing that. And then, of course, Leah Maivia, same thing. Was it Leah Maivia? Actually,
that was kind of right.
Wait a minute, I'm thinking, right? Wait a minute, what is Rocky Johnson's wife, The Rock's mom? I don't think it was Leah Maivia. I think Leah Maivia is The Rock's grandmother. Right. But either way, I mean, but she became a promoter in her own right, and she was not one to be trifled with. I mean, when she said something, I mean,
everyone listened to her. She was kind of like you talk about the head of the table in the household. She was probably the head of the table. Well, to most of the
the U.S. Express, and this is one of the things, because this is an entertainment industry. I would love to see Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham go in as individuals, because they both earned that. Mike Rotunda, I mean, and they can. And this is when you get the weird thing where somebody like Ric Flair is like a 2-time Hall of Fame inductee, and this will be 2 times for Barry Windham. Both times, though, as part of like a team, because Barry Windham's already in as part of the Four Horsemen. And see, Mike Rotunda could go in as part of Money Inc. along with Ted DiBiase. In fact, I mean, I have some Funko Pops right there with their autographs.
So I mean, here's the thing. It's like, okay, so this is a pretty nice list. I think it fits what's going on. You think about, all right, any way we could represent Bray Wyatt, his family, that works. Maivia,
sort of.
You got the bloodline, mainly inventing the story. Paul Heyman, I think it's Philadelphia. You can't go without Paul Heyman.
You pretty much have to have him in Philadelphia.
One of the greatest stories of getting into this industry, that from a photographer to he was just a side photographer, had to BS his way into the building because he had no credentials. And then look at where he became now.
And that's Heyman, and what Jim Cornette could almost say the same thing, except for I'd say Heyman is more successful. But Bull Nakano, also, this is another one that's long overdue, because Japanese women's wrestling, I mean, she was absolutely huge, and she actually had her own WrestleMania matches as well. And then you had Thunderbolt Patterson, of course. I mean, and he's more like the legend, kind of like when they do like in the NFL, somebody who hasn't made the Hall of Fame yet, we still have a way of getting them in. They earned it. So,
class of 2024, I think it's very simple, very easy. 2 more questions for you guys. One, last final prediction: who's walking away men's Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner?
I'd have to see the list of names who are in it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not aware enough for the participants to be honest with you.
In there. I'm choosing Ricochet, just to throw it out there. I guess I don't know.
I like Ricochet, but
there we go. Last but not least, the biggest night of them all is the night after WrestleMania. What is a prediction that you could see happening on that Raw after WrestleMania?
If Damian Priest doesn't cash in at WrestleMania, he's going to cash in at Raw.
Mine has a what if scenario. I say in the situation or the scenario in which MJF has signed with WWE and he's not a part of WrestleMania, I think that's the big reveal on him.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. I mean,
I
WWE
think
has done that before where they reveal. I mean, they have lacked. I mean, okay, so is there anyone from NXT that is worthy to be called up next Monday
that hasn't already been called up.
that has not
I'm
already
not
been
sure.
called up?
Not yet.
Yeah, I don't. Let's say I don't follow NXT
So
that
I think
much.
they
So I
signed
honestly
all
couldn't
of them
tell
at the
you.
beginning of the year, and they're just waiting for them to develop into it. Like,
Um,
Yeah.
but
I think the next crop ain't ready.
But either way, I mean, we've actually been going at this now, folks, for about 2 hours, and so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. So this is actually going to be put on Justin's channel as well on the TNC Sports Talk that they're in with Justin. So this is kind of a joint venture here, but we couldn't think of anybody better to join us than Rescue Randy. Because he's always been a great contributor, and he's another one that the man just loves wrestling. And if it hadn't been for Randy, I would have never ever seen an NWF, a Northern Wrestling Federation show. And if I hadn't been going to the Northern Wrestling Federation shows, I would not have met Justin. So at the end of the day, we blame Randy. So that's a good thing
I
or a
take the
bad
blame
thing.
on that one.
And so I really hope everybody enjoyed the show. Whether you're watching this on the Armchair Booking Wrestling channel or if you're watching this on the TNC Sports Talk channel, because I'm going to be sending the video to Justin so he can actually put it up on his own as well. Once Randy gets his podcast going, we may start doing that one too. Because now you notice we're saying not if, we're saying when. We're going to help Randy set up the Rescue Randy channel. And of course, that may actually sound like a GoFundMe account, which is the way that's worded. But either way, so but thank you everybody who was able to actually join in and either listen or watch us. We really appreciate it. At least I really appreciate it. This has been the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. Thank you to everybody for joining in. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Randy, for joining us. This has been a fun conversation. And there's some other things in store, for the show. And I'm pretty sure I know there's some other things in store for Justin's show, because that's why he keeps on the baseball, because it is baseball season. And
I took a change to my channel, so
we're
I don't know if
gonna
you saw it, but
I have seen a lot of baseball coming up on Justin's channel. You ought to check it out. So a lot of baseball. So, but until we can actually speak again, I have to say good day and God bless.